This Week in Startups is brought to you by AdRoll, the most widely used retargeting platform in the world with over 25,000 advertisers. Get started with a $100 credit at adroll.com/twist. And Eero, the world's first home mesh Wi-Fi system. For free overnight shipping, visit eero.com/twist. At checkout, select overnight shipping, then enter promo code TWIST.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. This is the show that we tape twice a week here in San Francisco, the startup capital of the world. And I am the world's greatest angel investor in my own estimation. I base that on the fact that I invest in 40 companies a year. And when you invest in 40 companies a year for 4, 5, 6 years, you all of a sudden have 200 companies that you've invested in. 1 or 2 of them may work out, and you get some signaling, you get some pattern recognition. That's one of the things I'm most proud of, I think, in my life, my career, is that I'm able to look at somebody in the eyes. I just think, is this person going to win? I don't need to know if the idea is going to win. I need to look them in the eye, ask them a couple of questions, and think, does this person have what it takes to win? Will they fight like an animal through the 100 days of hardship for every 1 or 2 good days that happen at a startup? Because startups are hard, especially when you try to do something challenging. And so this program features those entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs who get up every day and they just slog and grind it out. I love those. I love those entrepreneurs. They just grind it out. Not the entitled ones who take an angel investment and then go to TED or Web Summit or Summit on a cruise or Summit on a mountain or some other summit before they've actually achieved anything. These people are summiting before they've summited, if you get my drift. Entrepreneurship is hard. I'm very proud to be an investor in Trello, which is doing fantastic. And my guest today is Michael Pryor, who is the CEO of Trello. Now, you co-founded this with my good friend, Joel Spolsky. And I invested in the company, 2 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. How's my investment doing?
Pretty good so far.
Pretty good so far. I was looking at some of the stats. 14 million people have signed up for Trello, which is project management software system, web app. We'll get into it in a minute. 150,000 people signing up every week. 75% of the Fortune 500s are using it, including Salesforce, Adobe, Microsoft. Thousands of people at Nike, Starbucks, all these places are using Trello. What are they using Trello for? What is Trello for people who have never heard of Trello, which you can go see at Trello.com, by the way.
Okay.
And welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And sorry for the preamble, but you know what the thing is? I haven't slept. I was at the Warriors game last night. I woke up at 6 a.m. to do CNBC. I worked out with my trainer.
I saw the pictures that you were posting.
So. I worked out with my trainer. She kicked my ass. And then I drank too much caffeine. I'm in a weird, when you're in that state where you've had too much caffeine, not enough sleep, and you've worked out, and you're kind of like in that weird dreamy kind of zone.
You're tired, but you can't stop talking.
Precisely. I'm just hyped up. I'm amped up today, but I'm exhausted, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I'm glad you're here for this moment in time.
Thanks for having me.
So tell everyone, what is Trello?
Well, you called it a project management solution.
Well, it's a tool for managing projects and tasks and people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's how most people would describe it, right?
So I would say I want to correct a misconception. So when we first created this product, so if you go way back in time, Joel and I started a company in New York City called Fog Creek Software in
Very
2000. And the whole goal was to get a bunch of developers together and just do interesting things. There wasn't a great place for devs to work in New York City. You had to work at a bank or an advertising agency there. Yeah. So we started a software company.
They certainly weren't the stars in New York.
That's right.
They were second fiddle.
So it wasn't a specific product that we had in mind. So we built a lot of things over the years, many of them total failures, some of them good successes, some of them...
Stack Exchange.
Huge successes.
Stack Overflow, yeah.
Right.
People know that.
And Trello was one of those things that we were playing with. It was sort of this idea, as we would go around, we would see all these software devs were using project management for developers. So they were using our tool, Fogbugs, which is a bug tracking system, or they're using Pivotal or Jira or some other system. But they all had these whiteboards up in their office, and they had Post-it notes on them. And they were sort of managing their software development using that system. And we were like, why are they doing that on a board in their office. When they go home, they can't see it. And we started thinking about the challenges we were facing as managers, trying to understand, not at a super detailed level, but at a higher level to get perspective on what was happening inside the company. And Joel had this idea, and he said, what if we try to create this new document type? And it's really simple. It's just a list of lists. That's all it is.
A list of lists, the new document type.
So here, I'll show you. So
here it is.
This is
Michael's holding up a whiteboard.
This is the whiteboard.
And it says to do, doing, and done.
So we're taping twists. So I put it in the doing column.
And there's a little, here we go, there's a little
Finish,
yellow
put it in done.
Post-it that we're doing that says tape This Week in Startups. It's in the doing column.
That's right. So this is a simple example of what's going on. And it's not, Trello isn't much more complicated than this. And the idea was if we can give people something that can give them a little bit of structure to get on the same page with other people, it could be really powerful. Not as a developer tool, right? The idea for this when we first launched it, TechCrunch Disrupt, like 5 years ago, was, can we build this horizontal tool that we can get 100 million people to use? Right? Huge audience of people. And so we weren't going after developers, we were going after marketers, salespeople, managers, even people in their personal lives.
Yes, definitely people in their personal lives because my wife uses it.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, for her to-do lists.
I have a board that I use with my wife. We're moving to a new house. And so we're trying to figure out what do we need to buy?
You're moving out of the city?
Well, just to the suburbs.
You're leaving Manhattan for the suburbs?
I have 2 kids. They're one's 3.5.
For people
one's
who
1.5.
don't know, this is like if you lived in Manhattan and you worked in Manhattan, it was the goal to get to Manhattan. And then something happens at a certain point.
Which is you have kids.
Which is you have kids and you leave.
They gotta go to school.
They have to go to school. They have to have a backyard, a pool, friends, whatever. And it's very hard to grind it out in the city.
You can do it, but it's tough.
It's hard. I have friends who do it and they have like a 2-bedroom apartment and 2 kids and it's like they're all on top of each other. But it is psychologically difficult on a lifelong New Yorker or just anybody who spent, I'm assuming you spent at least a decade in Manhattan.
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
And in a way, you're kind of giving up on Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. It's tough.
And you're going to Jersey or Long Island or Westchester?
Westchester, yeah.
Westchester. Which means now you're going to be part of the group of people who goes up to Grand Central, gets on the train, does a little work on the train.
Sea of people.
The sea of people. See, this is the difference. I can see it on your face.
My commute is one stop right now. It's one stop. So.
One stop from Grand Central.
No. One stop from where I live.
Oh, I see.
On the subway.
Currently in Manhattan. Right, so you could walk to work, bike to work, cab to work, Uber to work, or take one subway stop.
That's right.
And now you got to take 5 or 6 subway stops to Grand Central.
Right.
And get into the funnels and the tubes with all the people. Oh boy.
It'll be different.
What does your therapist say about this? This is it's so funny because it is literally like one of the most challenging things for a New Yorker is to go to the suburbs. You know what? You're going to love it. It's going to be wonderful. At Westchester, all the Knicks live up there.
Yeah.
And all private schools up there, and the public schools are actually really good. My friend Brian Alvey lived there for a long time. Suburbs are nice. You can get, for $1 million or $2 million, you can get an actual house.
Yep.
In Manhattan, you can get nothing.
And the worst part about right now for us is we sold our apartment, but we can't move into the house that we bought yet because we haven't closed on the house. So we're kind of in limbo for a couple months.
That's easy. You just go. Listen, all you do is you go to Oyster Bay, or maybe you go down to Wildwood or Newport. You go on VRBO. You rent the house for 2 months. It's summer vacation for everybody. You take the kids out of school early. Easy peasy.
I think we're going to stay at Joel's house.
I'm sure Joel's thrilled right now to hear that. All right, when we get back, let's take a look at Trello and let's figure out what all the magic is about and why 14 million people have signed up and 75% of the Fortune 500 companies are using Trello when we get back on This Week in Startups. Hey everybody, we have a great new partner here at This Week in Startups, and it's adroll.com, adroll.com. And what they do is retargeting. What is retargeting? That's when you visit one website, and then if you're the website owner, you can retarget ads to that individual when they're on other websites. We've all seen this. You search for something on a website, and then when you're on Facebook or on Google or some other site, you see an ad that's not generic and boring and has nothing to do with what you're interested in or ugly. You see things that you're interested in. This is great for the consumer because they get ads that they would be interested in, and it's great for the publishers because the publishers get to make money from ads that are targeted And of course, it's great for the sites and the startups. One of our startups, as you know, I'm an investor in Rapify. James Heller, who is the founder of Rapify, says AdRoll is an integral part of his customer acquisition strategy. It allows us to continue to garner impressions long after the initial customer interaction. For example, somebody comes to the Rapify website. You can now then keep retargeting them and sending them different creative ways to engage with, say, their product, Rapify. It's also one of the most cost-effective tools to bolster any integrated marketing strategy. What he means there, James from Rapify, is, hey, it's super effective. If somebody comes to your website, you know there's someone interested. It's like they walked into your store, but they left. They weren't ready to buy, but they wanted to check out your store. Well, you know what? The second, third, fourth time, fifth time, that could be the charm. And this is why those ads are much more targeted and better for the person who's running the ads. It's basically more efficient for the entire ecosystem when it comes to it. And AdRoll is the most widely used retargeting platform. If you haven't heard of retargeting, look it up. They have over 25,000 advertisers using AdRoll.com, and they convert window shoppers into buyers. As I'm saying, it's super efficient for everybody involved in the ecosystem. And you'll get access to 500 plus ad exchanges, including the Facebook and the Google, as we call them. And you're going to reach potential customers across all devices, browsers, and apps. This balances usability with powerful performance. Machine learning and data science is used to bid on ads quickly and effectively. And so your budget's going to go further if you're a startup company or a marketer. And that eliminates all that wasted ad spend. You don't want to spend money on people who are not interested in your product. If they would never come into your store, why would you spend money on people who are not interested? I mean, think about it. Retargeting is just so brilliant. And it's a really new scientific way to do marketing, and people love it. People on all sides of the transaction love it. Established people like Pantheon and Doc Martens and thousands of emerging businesses are using AdRoll, and you can get $100 credit. That's right. You'll get $100 credit to get started as a new customer at adroll.com/twist. I know a lot of you are using it already. If you're already using it, you don't get that $100 ad credit. But if you're new customers, you're going to get $100 credit just for trying it by going to adroll.com/twist. Adroll.com/twist. This really works. Retargeting is one of the great, amazing innovations of the last 10 years, and AdRoll does it really well. Go ahead and check them out, adroll.com/twist, and welcome to the This Week in Startups family. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and today on the program, Michael Pryor, who is the CEO of Trello and has been since 2014, when he co-founded it with my good pal, Joe Spolsky, who's been on the program many, many times. He's got 65 employees in New York, and they spun it out of Fog Creek, which a lot of people know is a very famous software development company in New York, which also produced Stack Exchange.
Which is Stack Overflow now.
We just call it Stack Overflow now.
Yeah.
Because it's not really like a lot of different sites. Stack Overflow became so big and huge, it's like everything else is, not really that big of a deal. But 14 million people have signed up for Trello. Full disclosure, I think I put 100 dimes in. I may have tossed a hundy in. That's to me, that's, by the way, just so you know, when I throw 25 in, that's a feeler bet. When I put 50K in, I'm pretty convinced. When I throw 100 in, I'm just greedy.
I think you wanted to throw in more.
I probably did. Only because I just know Joel has such a great track record. Here's the thing. I know that Joel is going to do a quality job and focus on what matters in a startup. And I think what matters in this startup is the product design, right, and listening to customers. So you've been listening to customers. Let's take a look at the product and tell us how people are using it.
Okay, so, well, one of the things you said, we have 65 people in New York. Half of those people actually are remote.
65 people are remote.
No, 30.
Oh, half of them are remote.
Yeah, like half of our employees are actually working remotely. And when you think about Trello and you think about, the idea that this is a way for people to collaborate and get on the same page, which is super important when people are all over the country. There's so many different ways that you can use this document type, Trello boards. There's, ways to use it in your business where you're using it for, which is a very common use case in software development. We have people using it in marketing for editorial calendars. People planning their weddings with Trello.
Sure. This is anything that's got a lot of details that are going to slip through the cracks, and that anything slipping through the cracks would be potentially disastrous.
I mentioned before that my wife and I were using it for our house, so I'll show you the board there. There's some things I noticed in the house. that I want to check before we close.
Yep.
Do we have the key for the generator? Does the humidifier work? And then my wife started putting pictures of things, like she wants to get a stuffed peacock for the house. Of course, you have to have that.
If you're in Westchester, it's classic. Classic Westchester design. This is your life now, Michael.
So she and I are the
No more Odeon at 2 a.m. for you.
No.
Sorry.
So we're the only two people on this board, but it's a nice way for her to sort of figure out what we're going to buy. Well, maybe not all this stuff, but this is the wish list. Here's a really interesting use case. So Slack, a couple weeks ago, they took their roadmap for their platform that they're building out, and they created a public Trello board. So everyone can see this. Including
their competitors.
That's right.
But Slack has such a commanding lead that why not put it out there and get feedback from everybody?
Sure. Yeah, they're using Trello across the whole company. They've got, this is a good way to publish to people, like, this is what we're working. Now, I don't think this is the one that they're using also internally.
Yeah, they probably got something internally.
Right, right, with more detail.
This is more of like a PR campaign. Like, hey, it's PR customer feedback, customer service kind of way of using Trello.
That's right.
Because people are going to be like, hey, when is this coming? And you say, hey, look, it's here. And it's going to be number 3 on the list. But now, one of the interesting things about this method of putting a bunch of to-dos, if I'm correct, is that in an organization, anybody can go and grab something off the to-do board and take credit for it and then move it over to the done. It creates a little bit of either competitive or it's really good for the smart kids who are driven in the class when you have this kind of a structure, because whoever's providing value, it becomes transparent. There's no way to fake it. You either moved the Post-its along the Trello board or you didn't. Is that part of why people love this kind of stuff, and it's particularly embraced by startups?
Well, I don't think that we knew that this would happen, but very early on, we thought there's a way to archive cards when you're done with them.
Yep.
Right? You close them, they disappear. What we saw was people were starting to create a column that was like their done column, and they would move cards over there.
Yeah, it was nice.
We're like, why? But why? Like, if you think of other task solutions, like you close a case, it disappears, right? But they were doing it because it was a trophy wall. It showed momentum and velocity within the company. It was like, look at all this stuff that we've been doing, right? We have an internal board ourselves for the company called Company Report that gets updated once a week. And it's a very high-level board to sort of, everyone in the company can update the cards and the projects that they're working on, so we can sort of see it in an overall view that we're making progress, right? Because all day long you're doing small things, right? But how is this bubbling up to get our bigger goals? So there's like 4 different columns that represent our different goals that we're trying to track and the projects within them, and then everyone updates the card, and you see when it gets done, there's sort of a ceremony around moving it to the ship column. It's a celebration, essentially.
It's very satisfying when the board starts to have less items on it. But then, of course, is there a best practice around having leadership that likes to throw a lot of stuff on there and determining what you put on the to-do list? Because this, to me, seems a big point of contention in startups, where you might have a founder who wants to do everything. They want to boil the ocean, as we say in the business, and they just throw up dozens and dozens of items, which, some of them need to be broken down into dozens of items themselves. And how do you manage that?
So Joel and I are firm believers in servant leadership. We're just really trying to get things out of the way for people and kind of focus the vision. I think when I was talking about the company report board, the most important piece that I add to that is, what are we focused on right now? Not necessarily how are we going to solve it, but what are the higher level goals that we want to do?
Right.
And then I rely on the people individually to try to come together and figure out what they're going to do. How's product going to contribute to this? Right. When product's working on it, is marketing developing a campaign that's going to highlight that thing that they've just built? Is the PR company going to come in and talk about it in the press? Is all this stuff lining up? Is sales going to be bringing in, new leads enough for us to get more money so we don't have to raise another round? Or, basically, it's not, I don't view my job as telling people what to do. It's more, how do we all row at the same time instead of rowing at, whatever pace that we want to row at?
When people adopt this, what are the common mistakes that they make when they're setting up these boards, and what do they need to know going into it? Like, what kind of discussions do you need to have amongst your team to do this successfully? So
a lot of people have just one giant board, which I think sort of misses. Trello was about sort of constraint. If you have a checklist and has 1,000 items on it, you're never going to get through it, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that Trello is visual and there's only so much screen real estate was intentional, right? Focus on this stuff. If you've got 30 lists and you have to scroll up or across, like you probably have too many things that you're trying to focus on, or you haven't broken it down into the pieces that you need to break it down into. And we think of that as breaking it down into different boards.
The world has changed a bit since you started, certainly with Fog Creek, but also Trello, in that the idea that companies could run in a distributed fashion has been accepted as kind of the new model. What do you attribute that to, and how has your thinking changed about it? Because I think Fog Creek was very much like, hey, we all get together every day and we hang out in this office, and we have these beautiful closed-doored offices that, was a big part of Joel's sort of vision for how software should be made.
That's right.
And he's changed his position a bunch on this.
Yeah, I think it's great to have everyone in the same place. In an ideal world, you would. But if we're recruiting and we can only recruit from New York, it sort of limits the pool of people that we can look at. And I also think at the same time that we started to understand that, the tools that we had available to us got a lot better for collaborating remotely. So things like Trello, Slack, Appearin, Zoom, like the video conferencing got really good and easy. And also people's devices, right? They're just connected all the time.
Right.
It just became easier to communicate and figure out how do we align on these goals while people go off and do the things that they need to do to achieve them.
What's the secret to running a successful distributed workforce in your mind?
There's a couple things that we do. So in order to be remote friendly, all our meetings are remote first. So if there's somebody that's not in HQ that's remote, don't put them up on the monitor. Don't put like one person on the TV and everyone else is in the room. Like everyone should be on the same playing field.
So stay at your desk.
That's right.
And we'll all just put our headsets on we'll just run whatever.
That's right. It's quicker and everyone's just in the same position, and then you don't have the odd man out, right?
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. Also, you have to get people together, which is expensive.
So you got to fly them in on some regular basis or fly them somewhere central. How often do you need to do that when you have this distributed workforces, do you think? What's the best practice?
I don't know. We do it once a year because as you get bigger, it starts to get
very expensive to bring 30
and as a startup,
people together.
you're trying to watch the cash. And,
for sure.
But you have to do it. You have to do it, especially if you're hiring a lot of people. Because day to day, what happens is the people work really well and get a lot of face time with the people within their team, but no one outside their team, right? So if I'm home and I'm a developer on the Android team, I know the Android developers really well. I don't know any of the salespeople. I don't know any of the marketing people. I don't even know the management. So that's another thing. Also, every week we do these remote pairings for about 20 minutes. We put people together to get on an Appearin or a Zoom or a Hangout and just talk about anything, not work related. We call him Mr. Rogers. It's like just FaceTime for two random people in the company.
Wow, that's an interesting innovation. So just shoot the sugar, discuss whatever. It's my new thing now too. Is I just ask people when we're starting meetings, like, "Hey, anybody watch Game of Thrones, or who's watching what? What show are you watching?" Well, you know what? That talk about nothing means everything, because it just sets the tone of like, "Hey, we're all human beings. We all watch a little telly. We all have our opinions." And then when we get into like, "Oh my God, the Trello board and this overwhelming list of things we have to get done," it just feels like, okay, we're all humans. We'll get through it.
Right. There's people, you trust them. You're like, okay, I understand that.
Not based on all of these television recommendations. I can tell you that, because some people are watching shows that are terrible, have no taste in shows.
Do you watch Billions?
Love Billions.
Love it. Awesome.
Billions is fantastic. Anything Paul Giamatti, come on. Like literally him and 10 cadavers, to me, is Emmy Award winning. Literally him in a room with 10 dead people. Worth watching.
The thing that we realized was this happens in an office, right, all the time, and you just don't notice it, right? Because you pass somebody in the hall, you see their presence, right? Yeah. But if they're remote, you don't get that. So when you're in the kitchen getting a coffee and someone else from sales comes in and you go, "Hey, what happened with that deal with so and so?" and they're like, "Oh, that didn't work out," or there's communication going on in an ad hoc way, and so you have to like do actual work to approximate that. It's not perfect,
right?
But it's a job.
If people are starting to reintroduce inefficiency in a way, sort of to build relationships and deepen the bond in teams, because it was something that's lost when you are virtual, I think.
I think that you saw some people, with chat software, right? Like people chatting and then managers being like, are they doing any work? Are they just chatting? In our case, when people are in an off-topic room, some of that is actually useful, right? Because people are kind of bonding over other things. So it's sort of like a hard, like, where's the line? Like
the off-topic chat room is like where people blow off steam and they talk about Game of Thrones or some breaking news. Instead of disrupting the Android team room, you put that in off-topic.
Right.
So everybody doesn't get stopped. There's like a whole series of sort of new things, but some people are just not good on chat. Some people are persnickety.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are sensitive. How do you deal with tone in a chat room, where it feels to me like chat is almost, for some people, like I was way too intense in the beginning of chat because I can type faster than most people. I can type like 100 words a minute. So I'm just like, why are we doing it this way? Wouldn't this be better? And the person can't even get their first sentence complete before I'm like 17 sentences in. People are laughing in the control room. They know what it's like. But I've learned to slow down a bit. But how do you deal with the tone issue in chat?
I think that was sort of a self-learning process where we all had to say, you have to teach yourself to like realize when the conversation is starting to veer off, and you have to switch to video.
Yeah.
So you basically, it's you just recognize that this is going to happen, and so you try to get people to understand that it's going to happen. And when you start doing that back and forth, and it's like, and you're like, you feel yourself getting kind of worked up. It's like we have to talk about this in video because it will be solved. We'll understand the tone.
Right.
It'll change it. So it was just more of a learning experience of when is that starting to happen.
And everybody's watching. That's the other thing that's weird. It's like two people get into it in the chat room and then everybody's watching.
Company,
now the whole company's stressed out.
Yeah.
I'm trying to de-stress companies now and de-stress because there's so much inherent stress in building companies that this additional unnecessary stress, like stressing small stuff, I'm trying to figure out how to teach people which item on the Trello board is worth stressing about and how much stress. Is there a way to indicate how important stuff is and like how many points people get for it or how much time it should take? Is that part of Trello's vision, or do you it's just a to-do list and you're not like sort of getting into that point system and
I don't
how
think
long it should take?
We're not implying any kind of measurement system or something like that. Like I think there's tools that do a very specific job, like BetterWorks, I think, is trying to do that with like KPIs and there's companies that are trying to solve that to sort of like measure productivity. And when I think of Trello, I think of a spreadsheet, right? When you open a spreadsheet, it's just a blank canvas. And when Dan Bricklin invented the spreadsheet, he just made that up, right? So when you come to a spreadsheet, somebody has to show you what it is, right? They sit you down, they say, if you type a number here and then you put a formula here and you change this number and that one changes, you're like, oh. And you're like, and the wheels start turning and you start to understand, oh, this could be really useful if I want to figure out if I can afford a house, if I want to figure out what are my cash projections. You start to see all these different ways of using it. And, that's what we're trying to accomplish with Trello, is build something very horizontal and useful across the board that everyone can use.
All right, when we get back, I want to talk about scaling the business because you're way past the sort of getting product market fit. You've got product market fit. And when you have this many people using it, I just want to know, how do you get it to the next level? How do you look at it as a CEO and you've got this 65-person company? What's next? Because it does seem like, hey, maybe it's decision-making time. You raised a Series A, but I haven't heard anything about a Series B. I know people are buying a lot of companies right now. People are looking at this space. I want to know what the outcome is for Trello in the coming years when we get back on This Week in Startups. Eero, the world's first home mesh Wi-Fi system. I have it. Everybody won't shut up about Eero. I keep hearing about it from my friends, people who worked for me at Engadget, people who worked for me at AOL, all over the place. Everybody keeps telling me, Eero, Eero, Eero. Finally, I got it. I set it up. Setting it up, so simple. And then all those dead spots in my house where my wife or my guests would be like, oh my God, this Wi-Fi is not working over here. My God, it is the leading cause of domestic lack of tranquility, is when your kids can't get on Wi-Fi or your partner can't get on Wi-Fi, your guests can't get on Wi-Fi. And it's like magic. All of a sudden, everything in my house is fast and easy and we have complete coverage. So with the simple iOS or Android app, Eero blankets your home in Wi-Fi coverage. It reaches all over the place. It's like 10 times better than the solution I was using. I'm not even kidding. And the first one replaces your existing router. Additional Eeros plug into outlets, connect wirelessly for fast, reliable Wi-Fi for the entire home. I absolutely love this product. Nobody will shut up about it. My God, if you just type Eero into like Twitter or Facebook, you'll see everybody talking about how great it is. And here's a special offer for our This Week in Startups listeners. Free overnight shipping. Visit Eero, EERO.com/twist and check out select overnight shipping and enter the promo code TWIST. So go to Eero.com/twist and put in the promo code TWIST and you will get one overnight. EERO.com/twist. EERO.com/twist. It is literally the best upgrade. I always tell people, the two things I love, speed and a bigger monitor. Eero doesn't make monitors yet, but they do make the fastest Wi-Fi solution out there. It's the world's first home mesh Wi-Fi system, and it is brilliant. See what everybody's talking about. It really works. I use it. I am really impressed. Eero.com/twist. Use the promo code TWIST. And welcome to the family, Eero. I am super excited to have an exceptional product like Eero partnering with us on This Week in Startups. So congratulations. And I don't know why somebody didn't make that product sooner. It's so brilliant. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today, Michael Pryor. Who is Michael Pryor on Twitter? Pryor. And you can follow Trello, Trello, at Trello, and Trello.com. Now, what's next for the company? Because you're starting to make money. I know that there's a lot of money being made. You raised I think, did you disclose how much you raised in that first A round?
Yeah, 10 million. That was back in 2014 in July.
Some good investors, Spark and Index. I like both of those firms. Spark, of course, did Twitter. They did very well. Bijan.
Yep.
Is Bijan the person who did Spark? Okay, so him. That's very good. He's on the board. Very good. And then you have Index, which is Danny Reimer's company.
Yeah, I got Neil.
You got Neil?
Yep.
Is that Danny's brother?
Yep.
Now, is he based in San Francisco or London or New York?
Geneva, I think.
Geneva. Index is another one of these great VC firms. These are two, I wouldn't say they're like the top of the VC list, but I would say they're the hardest working. Like they don't have the longest track record yet. Spark is a new firm, relatively, and Index is a pretty new firm. They're both under 10 years old, right? I think they're both under 10. So I'm saying it's not like they've been around for 30 years, but these are two of the hardest working firms. I know that for a fact. So that's a good sign that they put that money in.
We worked with them at Stack Overflow, so we knew both of them, and we're happy to have them as investors. We didn't actually even go out. We just talked to them.
So you went to your existing investors in the other spinoff.
That's right.
And they were like, oh, yeah, we trust these guys. They do a good job. They work hard. They're diligent. Perfect. So you got that $10 million. But my understanding now is that you're either break-even, profitable, or close to break-even, or could be if you want to. So where are we at, if you don't mind getting into it?
Sure.
How many people use it every day? How much money are you making?
We got about, I don't know, so there's over 1 million DAUs. So we have over
1 million people a day?
Yeah.
That's a lot for enterprise software.
It's like 1.1 or 1.2 or something like that. And we just passed 10 million ARR. Annual recurring revenue.
Yes. So fantastic. So it's 65 people. They're making some amount of money each, and they have a little bit of overhead each.
Yep.
I can do the back of the envelope math. I think you're exactly at break even right now.
That's
magical place to be.
That's about 3x what we were doing last year. A little over that.
3x is a pretty great run up for an enterprise software company. Now, how do people pay for it?
So there's different ways. If you're a small company, we have a business version that adds in more advanced capabilities. We call them power-ups. There's other features around security and users, and then we have an enterprise version, which has things like single sign-on, account managers, more enterprise-type products. So it's it's very similar to Slack's model, per-user pricing, but there's also different tiers that you can choose.
So $5-10 a month
10.
per person?
Yeah.
10.
Yep.
So $120 a year.
Yep.
But if you assume the average person's making $25 or $50 an hour, somewhere in that range, and they save an hour every quarter using Trello, and they're 1 hour, just 1 hour more efficient, it easily pays for itself. And there's 500 hours in a quarter they're probably working. So you save one of those 500 hours.
And if you put people in here and they don't use it, then we deactivate them. We don't charge you for those people.
Ah, smart.
So we just proactively we do that after some period of inactivity, so you don't have to worry about. Oh, right. Do I know?
It's adaptive
is
pricing.
Cheryl really using this?
It's adaptive pricing.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because I know that was that's always one of the big hurdles when you're deploying software as a service on a monthly fee.
That's right.
Is, we have 30 people in the company. What if only 3 use it?
Right. So
we're
take
paying
away
for
that.
30. You take away that objection.
Yep, that's right.
That whole fear goes away. That's pretty bold to do that too, because that tells me as a buyer is that you're very confident you're going to infect the organization.
Yeah, you also basically proactively like ask for churn, right? Because you're like actively turning people off, but they're not using the product. So if that's happening, it's really because you're not delivering any value to that person. So
and you want to know that.
Why, or even why did you have them in the first place? You know, like,
Right.
or did they lose interest because they didn't get the right kind of value that you needed to deliver?
And that's a great feedback mechanism.
Right.
See, that's one of the things I'm doing with this inside email every day is I've been looking at it saying, instead of emailing everybody, let's turn people off if they don't open it after 10 days or 20 days, pick a number, so that we can keep the open rate super high. And so we turned off a bunch of people, and they were like, why am I not getting this anymore? And we're like, well, you didn't open it for 10 days. Like, I have images turned off. I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's a mistake. But for the other people, it was really interesting in terms of engagement because you want people to use your product, don't you? If they stop using it, kind of
Like it's just a vanity metric then, right? And you're
Yeah.
just in your people. You just want to reduce friction, I think, for people, especially in a collaborative app.
Yeah.
That's very important. It's, you know, Trello, you can use Trello and it's free. There's no limits on the number of boards you can have, the number of people that you can collaborate with.
So what's the incentive then? Is it controlled
Yeah,
management?
it's more when you're using it in situations that are business focused, we deliver features that really help you.
Right.
So as you get more advanced in your workflows, or you have a bunch of people collaborating, there's different things that you care about than if you're trying to figure out what you're going to buy for your new house with your wife, right?
Yeah.
That's not our target customer.
Most people think that this type of project management, task management, Trello board, et cetera, is on a collision course with the Slacks and the HipChats of the world. Are they?
So this is a great question. Slack uses Trello, as I showed you before, right? Across the whole entire company.
So they obviously don't think it is.
Right.
Or they're studying you. One or the other.
We're like the top integration for all the people that use Slack. So even their customers are all using Trello as well.
Right.
I think Google Docs might be one higher or
Yeah.
something. But, you know, if you're doing search and rescue and you're out in the woods, okay, you got your GPS, your
Right.
map. Like, where am I?
Right.
Where am I going? Where have I been? How am I going to get there?
Right.
That's Trello, okay? That holds your state. Like,
Right.
what's the plan?
Right.
So I'm not lost. I don't have any anxiety. I know exactly where I am.
Got it.
Slack is your radio,
Got it.
okay? You've got to communicate with people. You got to chat, but it's ephemeral, right? You talk, and then it disappears, right? Your GPS is always telling you where you are. And so those two things are very complementary
Right.
to getting something done and collaborating with people, because you got to talk. We're having this whole long chat, but what's the
Yeah.
takeaway, right? What's the action item? What's the summary? What's next?
How do you deal with all these people who make it free? I mean, I get the sense that these two things are different, but one of the classic moves in the software wars and the big tech wars is to take other people's, revenue stream and just absolutely destroy it by making it free.
Well, that's
So-
what we did.
Yeah.
We did that already because Trello is free.
Right.
And then we just deliver enough value on top of it
Right.
to build a successful business.
My point is, the Googles of the world, they've done to-do lists and stuff like that. They've danced around this kind of thing, but they've never come in and made it a full-on Trello board type product. Do you fear that kind of stuff? Or how do you, as an entrepreneur and a leader, keep people from saying, hey, we have to do Slack and add that before Slack adds us, all that kind of stuff?
Well, this software is a commodity, right? A developer could probably take Trello as a spec
Right.
and go and spend 2 months or 3 months and build it. Now, could they also build the mobile apps on, the iPhone and the Android? Like, I don't know if they can do all of it, right? And then all
Because
the
you're
power
doing it,
ups.
and you know how hard it is.
Right. So, but that's a race, right? You can't, your moat can't just be that you have a piece of software, especially if you're going to be super horizontal and,
Right.
try to be a new document type, right? This is a race to get enough people that are using Trello and getting a lot of value out of it, that if somebody else created a clone, people wouldn't use it. And if you look at our fans and people that use Trello, if you look on Twitter, like, it is amazing how much people love the software, which, to be honest,
It's cultish.
it surprised us a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is planning software. Like, people are getting very excited about this, but there's something about it. There's something about putting people on the same page and the tactile nature of it and the visual metaphor that we're doing that really resonates. And I think that's because that's how people already think, right? You have Post-it notes on your refrigerator, or you have on the back of your door. You organize your thoughts around your monitor. And there's something very visual about the way that people are organizing their thoughts.
How did you get all these big companies to have thousands of people on it? Was that just bottom up, or did you go in and set them up?
It's all bottoms up. Like there's like 6,000 people at Adobe using this, and that's all these small teams across the whole entire company. A quarter of Salesforce uses Trello, but there's no one team. That's not like one.
How do you then deal with billing in an organization where everybody's ground up, like paying for it on different credit cards?
Well, there's those individual teams can start paying on their own because they have a certain size budget, and so that works. Great. Okay, I have 30 teams at a particular company paying us, and then I say, hey, procurement or IT or security, did you know you had thousands of people using this product? Let's roll you up. Let's go through the MSA. We'll do the legal review. We'll set that all up, and then
what's MSA?
Master Services Agreement. It's just a thing that's a big legal document. It has to go back and forth when you sign these enterprise contracts. It's like, this is something we discovered when we got into these big organizations. There's like a checklist of things that you have to be able to check off.
Right.
Sorry. And you also have to, sign certain documents. And there's just
we're not
going
to read your Trello boards. We're not.
Right.
We're going to back it up. We're going to keep it secure. We're going to have two-factor authentication. Whatever.
That's right.
All those care about this stuff.
You have to check that off, and if you can check that off, that's great. That's step one. Then the second step is you got to go through legal, and then in our case, we're not selling to those people, right? They're not the end user. They're just a gatekeeper, and so you have to be able to get through the gate.
And how do you triple revenue again? When you get to like a big number like this, it gets a little harder, doesn't it?
Sure.
How do you get there? Because you sort of seem to be focused just on this product and this type, so it's not like you're adding another product to sell to the people you have. And you've got everybody. Are you going to just triple the price, or
No.
How do you?
So there's a lot of
30 million.
We've been discovering things like kicking over rocks, and there's been money underneath them. There's a lot of big wins all over the place. So for example, one of the stats was 75% of the Fortune 500 is using Trello. Okay, some of those there's like a small team, 10 people or something, right? That's just the vanity metric is 75%. But some of those have thousands and thousands of people. Okay, those are the people that we're targeting right now because they've already been sold on the product, right? We don't have to sell them on the product. One opportunity is to go to those other people where they might only have one or two people, and you say, look, these other companies are using it. Why don't you use it, right? But then you have to pitch them on the product. So that's one thing. The other is if you go to Trello right now and sign up and try to pay us, it's actually really difficult. And part of that is because early on, we had to really sell the product to people. We didn't want to put any friction in the way. So we were not focused on putting, like, hey, here's how you pay us up front. We had to convince them that Trello is going to be very useful back in the day. Now people are showing up and they already know Trello is super useful. Somebody told them about it. They said, hey, go sign up. They show up and they
used it at the last company.
That's right. So they show up and they have 20 people and they have their credit card and they're like, how do I pay for this again? So the funnel of like getting there and signing up is broken right now, and it's something that we're working on fixing.
Right.
And sort of understanding who these people are that are coming in. Like right now, because we don't have any visibility into the stuff that you put into Trello, we don't know who you are. Are you using it for work? Are you using it for personal?
You don't know.
We don't know, and so part of that is a problem of when you first get there. How did you come in? What did you tell us about yourself? So we can try to figure out: are you a candidate for our business?
How did you wind up getting such a large amount of international traffic? That to me is amazing. It's like the majority of the traffic is coming from outside the United States.
It's all organic. And part of it was 9 months ago we translated the product into a bunch of different, actually 4 languages, and then a couple months ago we added another 16. So now we're available in 20 languages.
How hard is that these days? I heard that it's easy and hard at the same time. Like there's services that will translate you locally or crowdsource services.
We did both.
But to get it right is hard.
We did both. We originally we used the service, and then we did the crowdsourcing when we added the 16.
Which one worked better?
At scale, the crowdsourcing, because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But there is sort of there's an after step, right? But you can rely on your people to help you. And there's a lot of tools out there there's like SmartLing and TransFX, and there's all tools out there to help you do this.
You basically say, hey, if you speak Spanish or Russian, just tell us what this word should be. And then you get 2 people to agree.
That's right.
And then it says, okay, it was double blind. Most people agree that it's file open, and that means whatever in France.
And you get people emailing to customer service and telling you, like, this is not supposed to be that word, and you go fix it and you update it. But it definitely gets you really far as a startup. I think if you're, bigger company, if you're Microsoft or something, you just have people in-house.
Do you have a sales team, or do you just let it sell itself?
We didn't until about a year and a half ago.
And then you added a sales team. Why? Because some people seem to think, I think HipChat was the first one, or even Slack, we'll never need a sales team. We should never have sales. Sales is evil. But then they all wind up getting it anyway, I think. Why do you have to eventually have a sales team?
Because there's always people that it's not about selling the product. Like I told you, it's not that you're pitching the product to these people to tell them that it's useful. They can figure that out for themselves. But you have to help them navigate through those gatekeepers. So a lot of what the salespeople are doing is just dealing with procurement and legal. And it's part of that process. You're basically taking an advocate within the company and you're helping them get through their own company's bureaucracy so they can buy your product. And that's why you need a sales team.
Got it. So just navigating. So when you're on a Trello board, is there a chat room associated with the Trello board or no?
We have a really tight integration with Slack, and we're working on even more things with them that will be coming out shortly. And so there's ways to do a lot of things where you're taking notifications from Trello and you're putting them into Slack, or you're taking Slack things and putting them back into Trello.
But Slack is it's so easy to make a chat room. I mean, Slack is essentially HipChat, right? Like HipChat came before them, and it's just a more polished version, I think. Maybe most people would say it's designed a little bit better. Some people would say it's quirkier. I kind of like the HipChat interface a little bit better. It feels a little more utilitarian.
Why do you think Slack is doing so much better, it seems, than HipChat then?
That I don't know. I think it's the integrations, perhaps. They must be doing much better than HipChat, right?
I think
or
that
significantly better.
Well, I think HipChat was. So I see a lot of tools that were developer first, and then they went out to mass market.
Yeah.
And I think basically when you understand that. That's what we did with Trello, right? We took this idea of Kanban, which is a software development idea. Yeah, and a Kanban board looks like this. It's a thing. There's a lot more features in Kanban. There's things called swim lanes. You might have dependencies and charts, and there's all these different things that are applicable to software development. And
blockers one?
Yeah. We stripped all that away because that vocabulary doesn't make sense to a marketing person or a salesperson.
This was a Japanese
right,
project
I think it started
management.
At Toyota.
Toyota, right? Kanban,
yeah. And so we then took that and introduced it to the masses. I don't know this, but I think if you went and you looked at why Slack is so successful, it's because they're getting people that didn't used to do chat.
Right.
So it's not people that were using HipChat and now are switching to Slack. That certainly happens.
Right.
But I think most of their growth is because now there's journalists that are using Slack. There's people working remotely that are using Slack. There's just my dad, his
There is
nights.
definitely a network effect that occurs
That's
when you have one Slack community and then people start inviting you to other ones.
Yep.
But it doesn't feel like the product is discernibly different to me than HipChat.
I think that if you look on Twitter, you can see totally different emotion around Slack than you do for HipChat.
There is different emotion, right? It feels like a
People
different brand. It loves Slack.
Yep.
It's interesting. Sometimes the first person to get the product out doesn't win. But why wouldn't you just add chat to the boards? I mean, it seems like if Slack has had this massive, massive success, and you're like, hey, the GPS is different than the radio, but you might talk about the map and the GPS on the radio, and you might refer to, so it seems to me that these are peanut butter and chocolate that eventually it would be nice to have them in some way integrated, no?
Well, so we do have a really tight integration, like I said, but there's also, I think, a difference between the conversation you might have that's sort of stateful and you want to stick around versus you're talking about junk that just kind of disappear and you don't want it to stick around. So let me show you the back of a card, for instance.
Yeah.
What's a good one here? Here's a board we have for analytics. So there is when you look at a card, so I was telling you before about the Post-it note. So I think the Post-it note is a nice metaphor, but Trello cards themselves are basically mini projects.
Right.
So this is like a manila folder, right, that you might get if you're a paralegal at a law firm, you might come in and they say,
on billions, they might hand this to you.
yeah, they're like, here's the Cantor file, right? And you go through it and you're like, there's notes on it and there's all this stuff and there's files and stuff's falling out of it and receipts on there. And it's like, it's got all these different things going on. So a Trello card is like that. You might have labels, you might have Google Docs attached to it. You could have Salesforce leads, GitHub pull requests. You have conversation as well. You can add checklists. There's all that stuff is there, but you're also moving it around where it has semantic meaning. So we do have conversation, and since we use Slack internally, we kind of, Slack is this where we're chatting, right? And when we're talking on Trello, it's more about this communication that we're having that's kind of more stateful.
It's about the specific task at hand.
That's right.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a different level of granularity, and I think that changes depending on the board.
I would almost like to see it have in the 5th column or the 6th column, like it's just an open chat room. We're talking about that board. Whether it was, can you pull a Slack chat room and put it into another product yet?
No, I don't think they have that feature.
See, that's the killer feature, don't you think?
I do.
Why don't they have that feature? Are they scared that it's going to blow up Slack? I think it would only make Slack stronger.
Well, I think, they're working on a lot of things.
That's probably it. Stuart's working on a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think, like, when you build a product, there's some danger to putting like all your functionality into some other product, right? Where you don't have any brand identity left, right? So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I don't know.
That to me would be like the way YouTube you can embed videos,
right?
Like the ability to say like this, create a chat room for every Trello board in Slack. So just you have on Slack Trello, and then underneath it, every time a board gets done and every time it's updated, it just sorts it by that order. And then when you're on Trello, the board is there. So you just, in terms of state, they're all within arm's reach.
Yeah.
It'd be great if they did
If you could just put an iframe in the window and just have your...
Yeah. Embeddable Slack rooms. Can somebody take a memo? Just email, this is a message to Stuart Butterfield.
We go to the product roadmap for Slack.
Go to the product roadmap. Make embeddable chat rooms.
They don't let you add
you know what? They're
cards
very
to
much
that.
like, every time I have a product solution for Stuart, he's just like, yeah, we don't do that. I'm like, okay, but... We have like 6,000 people coming to the conference, and like it had this one issue. Like we had thousands of people sign up for a conference chat room, and then this woman, I banned her from all future conferences because she went through and took everybody's email from the directory and then started spamming everybody. And I was like, you are banned for spamming. She's like, I didn't do that. I was like, I have the 8 copies, and people used when they signed up Jason plus launch chat at calacanis.com. Like they noted the email. You're busted dead to rights. And so I banned her from all future events at her company.
I think that's a hard thing for product people, because you might have this, 0.001% of the time this bad thing happens, right? And so then do you create a solution that punishes the other 99.999%?
I was just like, put a checkbox that says expose email and directory. And they're like, yeah, no, Slack's not for conferences. I'm like, but everybody's using it for conferences. It's really effective for a conference. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't do that. It's like, it's so easy. And there's all these other people doing groups. So they're like, yeah, people could just create another email address.
I think when you're doing product, like part of the reason that when people love your product is because you're thoughtful, okay?
Yeah.
And you know what is part of your vision and what isn't. And I think if you start with the idea that you're going to build a product and then you're just going to ask people what you should build and then you're just going to put it in there, what you end up with is just like a tool for IT to impose their awful workflow on the masses or something,
it's
just
like customized.
Yeah, and then they customize it. And the worst part about that is then you have the people then hate your product, even though it was somebody internal to your company that built this awful machine.
Yeah,
they customize it to be this awful thing, but the end users blame it on you, the software.
Yeah. It happened in the early days of Twitter, because I was like, Robert Scoble and I like emailed Evan Williams at one point, and we're like, there's too many people following us. Like, we're getting like 50 requests a day to be followed, and we have to follow everybody back. Can't you just put a checkbox that says automatically follow people back who follow me? Because in the old days of social networking, it was kind of like, well, why would anybody follow you if you didn't know them? That doesn't make any sense. So we'll just auto follow. So they created a little thing for us where it auto followed back. And it just kind of blew up Twitter. And it was just like, oh, can we turn that off now? Because I'm following everybody. It's destroyed Twitter for us. Like, I'm following 30,000 people or 100,000.
You would never read a feed.
You can't read the feed, so I had to rely on lists and stuff like that. So you do get into that custom.
Well, I think
too much customization.
The point of building a successful product is you have to listen to people, but you have to understand they're coming from a place where they've probably seen this already. So they're giving you a feature request that they see how somebody else solved it, but you might be trying to create something different. So you have to understand really what's the pain. We had an instance where people would ask us for, I want to mark a card as done. They want, like, I want a way to mark a card as done. And we're really hesitant to add more vocabulary around Trello because it's so simple. It's just boards, lists, cards, and teams, right? And so we were trying to understand why do they want this thing that, I don't know, why can't you just make a done column or archive the card? Or we have different ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And when we dug down, if you have a due date on a card and the due date passes, it shows on the front of the card.
Right.
The
it's now
due date.
in red or something. Yeah.
That's right. It's in red. And what we realized
producing.
was after the due date, if somebody had done that thing, they were annoyed that it was still red. It was bothering them. So it was really just a color. It wasn't that they needed a done state. They just needed a way to make the due date stop bugging them. And when you understand that, you could build a feature maybe that doesn't complicate it in a way that they first suggested.
It was like the original email. I remember talking to either Larry or Sergey about Gmail, and I was like, why can't I delete my email? And they're like, you just archive it. And I was like, Sergey, I don't want to archive it. I want it gone. I'm done with that email. I don't want to ever see it again. He's like, yeah, but you may want to search it sometime. We're a search company. So the whole idea is we want to bring Google search to your inbox. I was like, it's so stupid.
Because you've never seen that before, right?
I'd
that
never
was
seen it. It's like, I want to delete this stuff. I don't want these emails around. Rip them up. It's like keeping a stack of memos. Why would I do that?
Do you do that now? Or?
I do like to delete. I archive things that are conversations. But if it's spam or like marketing messages or like a Twitter notification, I like the feeling of hitting Shift pound and knowing it's gone.
And they basically allowed you to do that in a power user sort of way, right?
They did. They didn't have to put a delete button in.
They didn't have to complicate the experience for everyone else, but they let the 0.1% solve it.
I like those. I'm just a fan of quick keys and all that kind of stuff. I love Shift exclamation point.
Yeah,
That's my punitive.
We have a ton of those.
I don't know if people know that in Gmail, but if you like get something and you're like, this is spam, you just hit Shift exclamation point and it just automatically spams it and gets it out of there really quick. It's a really good feeling, especially when it's a person who's just like PR people. When PR people like Edelman, I get all these like PR people emailing me constantly, and then somebody gives them my like personal email, and I'm just like, oh, Edelman PR? Oh, okay, this PR company? Great, Shift pound, Shift pound, Shift pound, Shift exclamation point.
I don't delete it
I
anymore.
make them spam.
I create a filter from that. If that person emails me ever again, it goes straight to the trash. Because what happens now, I get the sales email, and then I get the email after the email that says, did you see my first email? Oh, I know you're busy. Did you see my second email? Oh, sorry. Here's my third email just to bring it to the top of your inbox again. And it's like, I didn't respond to you the first time.
Yeah. You know what I've done is I've now kept, because we invite people to things. I might invite you as a portfolio company to something. What I do is I put a thing on the bottom that just says like, if you'd like to never receive email from us again, blah, blah, blah. And then I have a no-fly list, which is an email list that even if people re-sign themselves up, I never email them. Because I'm just like, you know what? Like this person flew off the handle one time for an email. Like I'm like, this is my no-fly list. Where basically I'm like, anytime somebody gets really persnickety about email, I'm just like, put them on this list. Anytime we send an email, do a mail merge with this list of 200 people. Like Mark Andrees is very persnickety about his email box. And like I was sending like my little newsletter, like here are my random thoughts on stuff. I was like, I'll send it to like 100 people I know in my inbox. And I put them on the list. It's like assistance, like how do I get off this list? He didn't sign up for it. I'm like, it's not really a list. It was just my thoughts, but okay, I'll take them off the list. I don't want to like upset Mark Andreessen about, people get very specific about their email box. I understand it.
It's weird because like your email inbox essentially gives the same amount of pixels to any random person in the world, right? It like gives them the ability to like occupy this amount of space in your vision, which is totally broken, right? Like everyone gets the same ability to like command what I see, you know? It's useful in a lot of ways, but like, you know, my wife and I don't email, I text her.
Yeah.
Right? There's like people that have my phone number, it's like they're very close, right?
Yes.
And then there's people I work with, we use Slack, right? And then my email becomes people I work with outside. But
Yeah, it's becoming a very interesting channel. I think the fact that Slack and Trello and these other things have taken a lot of stuff out of email has made email like a content channel now. Like, I get content in my email that I like to read, like newsletters from people who I think are smart, and like it sort of decreased the amount of email coming in because you don't have people like doing their punch list and sending attachments anymore. It's like, why are you emailing me? Put it in the Slack room. Are you dumb? Like, what's wrong with you, son? Why would you do that? The most creative solution I saw to like the email problem was a company called Goodmail. I think the name of it was that AOL had invested in, where their idea was to charge people a penny or a fraction of a penny every time you sent email.
Yep.
So you just like load up your email with $10 at the beginning of the year, and it would just be this like little piece of friction that would penalize marketers. And I was like, this is a really interesting like way to deal with the problem. There's like no cost to email, which makes it so ubiquitous and amazing. And but then of course LinkedIn did that with InMail, and it turns out the people who InMail me are the people I least want to ever talk to.
Yeah, think about your mailbox right now, post office, right? The junk mail, like that is the only revenue source that kind of, if they got rid of that, then the post office would be bankrupt,
Which means the post office should be bankrupt.
Probably.
Like, why do we even have, like, this idea that there's a post office is crazy. That we provide postal mail.
Well, I think that technology just changed that landscape so fast that sort of the other methods haven't caught up yet.
Yeah, I guess so, because there are people who maybe don't have means and then they'll be left behind digital divide style. So I guess we do have to have something. All right, listen, I could talk to you forever. You're a smart cat. If you're hearing my voice and you don't use Trello yet, you got to go try it. Trello, Trello.com. It's a fantastic product. I'm super stoked that you guys let me invest in it. It was one of these situations where like, hey, Joel's like, hey, we're kind of full, but do you want to invest? I was like, sure, let's do it. It's nice. Thank you for... And it's, it's a very important lesson for those people listening who have very successful companies. Always a good idea to just carve out just a little piece on the cap table for Jason. Always a good idea. You never know when you might need a tweet or something, but it's been years, and I'm super excited that you guys are doing so well. What's the outcome for a company like this? This would be like a mid-market company now. You must have had many offers to sell it, but you guys haven't chosen to sell it. You're still going, so you must see some big opportunity in front of you.
There's just so much potential that we see in front of us, like the things that we know right away that we want to work on and fix right away. That somebody would have to really come in and sweep us off our feet, type of thing. Yeah. Because it's like I tell people, I'm like, pretend that we're gonna go to Mars, right? Super long mission. Very risky, but we've gotten off the launch pad. We just passed the moon.
Yeah,
like we're at the point where
escape velocity.
That's right. It takes 4 days to get to the moon. It takes 4 months to get to Mars. So we still got a long way to go.
Right.
But like, look at all the distance that we came, and we see the path in front of us, and we know we can do it.
By the way, most people die during liftoff.
That's right.
So it's sort of like once your plane gets to like 30,000 feet or your rocket gets past the moon, your chances of dying have gone down like 1,000-fold. So you guys are not going to go out of business with $10 million in ARR.
No, it's still risky though. There's a lot of risk still inherent in that, and there's a lot of things that we have to do.
Bring some potatoes. Some Martian reference. You saw the movie The Martian?
I read the book, saw the movie.
Read the book. Yep. I saw the movie. We had a nice screening with Andy Weir, who's the author, who's on the program. You see the episode we did with him, Andy Weir?
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah. Emmy Award-winning producer. Can we send Michael a link to Andy Weir on This Week in Startup? We had him on the show. He was great. Great guest. I went to his house.
Yeah, he's a big Stack Overflow user.
Yeah. Well, he's an Android developer.
He's a programmer, yeah.
Literally, I go down to, I was like, hey, listen, I really like this book. Can I interview you? Emmy Award-winning producer sets it up. He's like, yeah, but you had to come to my house. So I go down to Mountain View or something. I can't remember where it was, like Mountain View. And he lives like in a little townhouse. And I'm like, Ridley Scott's making your movie, Andy. It's time for you to move to Hollywood. Like, it's time for you to leave Silicon Valley. And he's like, yeah, it kind of makes no sense. I don't need to be here anymore. I'm not working as a developer. And I'm paying for the most expensive real estate in California. This makes no sense. I was like, go to California. Ridley Scott made your film. Go make an HBO series. Go cash in. I think maybe he took my advice. He might be living down there now. I don't know. All right, listen. Congratulations on all the success. Everybody follow Michael Pryor. I'm assuming you have some positions open you might want to hire for. Yeah, pretty great place to work.
There's a lot of positions.
Stock options.
Remote friendly.
Yum, stock options. Smart people.
We've only done one round, so.
Oh, not a lot of dilution on the cap table. Good time to get in.
409A is still you know.
A little bit low. Yeah, that's good. Listen, I have to tell people, this is like the sweet spot to get into a great company, because can you imagine you got in Uber or you got in Facebook or Google at Series A level stock? Right. And if they've got the Series A from these world-class investors, hey, you know what? A lot of the risk has been taken out right now. You're not on the launch pad. Now the rocket's, just passing the moon. Go ahead and try Trello.com. It's awesome. Everybody loves it. It works. And continued success. Thanks to our partners, sponsors for making independent media like This Week in Startups possible. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.